have a special guest, Riana Malia, for this episode. If you are having issues with feeling shame with your past relationships or struggling through trauma with any of your relationships, this episode is going to give you some true, tangible action steps to take to get you to meet your perfect match. All right, welcome to the Real Connect podcast. I'm your host, Tamika Carlton, and I am super excited. I have Riana Malia with us today. I think that we all are in need of this conversation. I think that we are going to get some extreme quality takeaways, which I love, of course. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, I would love to say, hello, Riana. How are you?
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for coming on the show. I'm excited, as I said, because I think that there is, I had an opportunity to get to know you online, of course. And I think that you share some really great nuggets and wisdom about just being connected in a relationship and being able to, forgive yourself. But before we get into all of that, I just want to have a better understanding. I saw that you are a certified Evolved NLP Practitioner. Can you please tell me what that is, what you do? What is it that you help your clients with?
Absolutely. So yes, from an expertise standpoint, I am an Evolved NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming practitioner. Mm-hmm. I'm a quantum time release practitioner.
Nice.
And I'm master trained in trauma conscious transformation coaching. So I help ambitious, successful women really clear what needs to be cleared. So we need to heal what needs to be healed so that we can actually create the life and the love that's meant for you.
Yes.
So my tagline has always been, your very best life. So my mission in this world is to whoever I meet, right, to help you live your version of your very best life. But the truth is so my methodology is you have to clear to create.
Sure.
And it's wonderful to say, yes, I want to live my very best life, but we got to clear first.
Yes.
And so that's such a huge part of the work and my process.
I love that. Well, that raises a question for me. Why did you get started to do this work? Because it sounds like there's some true passion there. I would love to hear that story.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think all of us in any form of being in help resolution or therapy or coaching, right? We all have a story. It often comes from, lessons or experiences in our lifetime. So without, going back a million years, there's a lot of layers to that, but there was, an absent father situation. There was, I was raised by a single mom who was amazing, and my grandparents were incredible. I grew up in a horse barn in a tiny town in southern Minnesota. Nice. Went off to college. My father was kind of, back in the picture a little bit. I'm going to help you. I never helped you. I never helped your mom. Went off to college. I got a call 2 months in. Yeah, your dorm room was never paid. I was maxed on loans. Wow. So it's like, okay, I can either leave school or I can figure it out. Yeah. And one of my superpowers is being really resurseful, right? Nice. So I got 3 jobs, find a 5-bedroom house at 18 years old. Who would ever house in the world is beyond me. Filled the other rooms, worked, went to school. Got married really young, 22, when I was a baby. Had a, you're too young. You don't know who you are. You don't know who you are. Had a kind of a lonely marriage. We had Maddie, who's my miracle child. She just turned 21.
Love that. 21. Okay.
Yes,
That's awesome.
My baby angel. She's been studying abroad in Spain. She's coming home next week.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
And then it was lonely and sad and hard, the marriage, and it wasn't happy. And so we divorced in what I thought was going to be a very amicable, very reasonable situation, which very quickly turned into something else. So after the divorce, then you're dealing with all the things, right? Anger and sadness, regret and fear. And even though it wasn't a marriage I wanted to be in, you grieve for what you want for your life and your family. Like nobody gets married thinking, I'm going to get divorced.
Sure.
So you do all the things you're told to do after trauma, whether it's divorce, childhood trauma, betrayal, whatever. You go to therapy, you talk about it in therapy. You talk about it with your girlfriends, you read the books,
awesome.
You give it time.
All
right?
the things.
You do all the things.
Right.
And you're kind of like, okay, there's some maybe a little bit of, temporary peace or resolution there, but it doesn't really heal you. And you keep talking about it over and over again. And it really, after a while, it just keeps the drama and the story alive and front and center, right? The neurology just keeps getting installed. And my father was like, hey, I have this opportunity. Come take over this family business, move to California and just like breathe. And I was like, huh. And everything inside of me said, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. All of my besties were like, what are you doing? You can't trust your father. Like, don't do this. But I was tired, honestly. And so I ignored all the red flags. And I said, all right, well, I moved my mom, my daughter, 2 horses and 3 cats across the country from Minnesota, California.
And this is, how old are you? You said 22 years. Is this about?
No. So I've been here 12 years now. So this was 12 years ago.
Okay. Got it.
12 years ago, we moved to California. So we get here. I was excited. That first month or 2 felt magical. The horses were here. I was, in this magical candle studio. Maddie was going to get to grow up in this tiny little town at the base of Mount Tam, 15 minutes from the ocean. And something just didn't feel right. Like I knew something wasn't right and I didn't know what it was. And I was like, I don't know. I just made a huge mistake. I don't know what it was quite yet. Anyway, long story short, not long after being here, I was in the studio in the back and I heard people come in and, it was getting ready to launch holiday season. And in comes 5 or 6 agents, guns drawn, put me in handcuffs.
What?
And I have absolutely no idea what's going on.
Wait a minute.
And
I was not ready for this part of the story. I was just like, okay, okay, continue. Sorry.
So my little girl is supposed to be home from school with a new little friend, just moved to California. She's in 4th grade. Like she's coming home after school with a new little friend. My mom was taking them to frozen yogurt. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening. And all I do is like, my daughter is like, what, can I call my mom? They're like, no, you aren't calling anyone. So they proceed to tell me that they've been watching this studio. There's another man that was there who had been working, and he had come to take everything to the post office for me for the mailers for the holiday promotion. And anyway, ultimately, they said, they had pulled a box, and I was excited. I had gotten this big account with Sky Mall. Do you remember Sky Mall magazine on Delta Airlines?
Yes.
Okay. So I had just gotten this huge account for our gorgeous towers, and they pulled the box off of the FedEx truck and they come in and they're like, did you pack this box? And I was like, looked at it. I'm like, yep, that's a Sky Mall thing. I packed it. Anyway, they opened it up. Obviously there was candles in there and that was it. And so it went back on the thing. And so they proceeded to tell me that there had been an investigation, that there was suspicion that there was other things, if you can imagine, being shipped inside of candles that was not legal.
Wow.
And they went to this other person's house and they did find some stuff there. My father wasn't there. He was off with, I think, the new girlfriend, driving her back to South Dakota. And I was just sick to my stomach because I just moved my little girl, my mother, her whole life. Yeah. And I made a promise to Maddie. She was 9. I moved around a lot when I was little. And I said to her, I said, I will only do this to you one time. No matter what, I will only disrupt your little life one time. I promise you, we're going to go. It's going to be amazing. So this happens. My father's like, I don't know. I have nothing to do with this. This is crazy. I don't know what's going on. I didn't believe him, but I really wanted to. So I kind of just let it go and kept going. A few months later, a bigger thing similar happens. So now it's clear to me that I no longer have a business.
Wow.
And I no longer have an income. And at that point, given what I knew, I no longer wanted, I couldn't have a relationship with him either. So now I'm in California alone. I don't know anybody. I no longer have a source of income. And I had a decision to make, right? We could go back to Minnesota in a heartbeat, back into our family and our friends and whatever, or I could keep my promise. So I tapped into that resourcefulness and I figured it out. I went back to school. I got a real estate license. I, threw $100,000 on a credit card to start a business, keep life going.
Yeah.
And was back in therapy because how do you deal with then, once again, trusting, wanting that relationship with the father.
The trust factor. Yeah.
Right. And then having it just like, how could you do that? Like not only do something like that, but to put me in danger, put Maddie's, well-being, like it just was wild. So back in therapy, talking about it, writing the letters, doing all the things. And again, my mental real estate, it was, fully flooded, either being sad or ragefully angry about this whole situation. and it wasn't healthy. And it was about that time where someone introduced me to some quantum healing techniques that they had experienced. And I was like, well, it certainly isn't going to hurt. And what I noticed in a matter of weeks were that there were parts of me that I didn't recognize in all the best ways. And finally getting to actually release all of that. And, I forgave him. And let me be very clear, because this trips up my clients all the time. Forgiveness does not mean they get access. Forgiveness does not mean they get a seat at the table.
Yes.
Right? It just means that I took back my power, my joy, my ability to be present and create the life that I wanted to live rather than being consumed
What did that look like for you? Because I feel like, and I have a lot of questions because that was a great story. But I'll start with the forgiveness factor because I touched on that even at the beginning. What did that look like for you? Because I think we hear that often, like you have to forgive people. This is the opportunity for you to release, all of the trauma that you feel related to them. But what did that really look like for you? What were you doing to actually release and actually feel like you were in a place where you could forgive and you felt freer?
Mm-hmm. Well, to give you a specific example, what I had been doing, right, which is I think for so many of us is those traditional kinds of therapeutic methods or methodologies. So he had sent a letter. It's just ridiculous. And I was so angry. And I was like, every single line of that letter, like I wrote a paragraph or a page in response. So it was like 30 pages, right? It's very, cathartic, but it was just all of this like defending and the back and forth. And this word gets thrown around so much, the narcissist. But with someone who has a narcissistic personality, if you respond at all, it just fuels them.
Absolutely.
I learned that very, very quickly. Like just, he'll still text me once a year maybe, and I just delete them. It's been years since I've engaged. But the forgiveness piece, again, I was suffering around, how can I forgive him? Who does that? Like, and then
all the trials.
Right. All the things. And then I really started to understand what like alchemical forgiveness, which I do this in my practice, quantum time release, but really going, okay, what is it that I want? Do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? First of all.
Yes.
I was also really sick of my freaking story. Like, the drama of it all. And, there's always, I talk a lot about secondary gain, and it's an unconscious driver when there's some payoff to staying in the problem. We get attention or we get help or whatever it is. But at a certain point, you're like, oh God, I'm so sick of hearing my story. I don't even want to, you don't want to tell it anymore.
I don't even want to tell it.
I don't even want to hear it. And I was it was like that. It was that combined with the fact that I was like, what do I want? I don't want to be this bitter, sad, angry person. Like I want joy and peace and abundance and love. And I want to travel the world and I want to be the best mama.
Yes. And I love that. I think, did that look like you like having some alone time to sit with self to recognize that you were like feeling like I'm in a state of, I keep reliving the same things? Because I think, again, and this happened to me too, it's easy to say the words, but a lot of times people just need to understand, like, how do they get to the other side? Like, what is it that actionably, what is it that you can do to actually get to a point where you're like, I feel like I'm prepared to release. I feel like I'm prepared to let go. And for me, it was a lot of alone time and simmering with my own thoughts and recognizing what I was hearing and the story, right? The negative story, the drama. Okay. But I don't know. What did that look like for you?
Yes. So again, I think it comes down to asking that question, like, what is it that I really want?
Sure.
And here's the thing. As humans, we think between 65,000 and 85,000 thoughts every day. 90% of those thoughts are recycled. So the same thoughts we thought yesterday and the day before and the week before, the month before, and for sure in the middle of the night when we're going through all the what ifs.
Yeah.
And 75% of those thoughts are negative. And a lot of my clients will push back at me because they're like, nope, I got the mindset, I'm good. But when we really look at it, the way that the conscious mind is wired is most of the time we're thinking about the stuff we don't want. I don't want to feel like this anymore. I don't want to be in a relationship where I'm not cherished. I don't want to be in this financial mess. I don't want to be blah, 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 blah. So the unconscious mind, just like the universe, it doesn't hear the clarifying don't. All it knows is, all right, damn, you are really focused on this. I'm going to keep giving it to you. So this is why we see people end up in the same relationships over and over, or the same circumstances in life, whether it's in business or family or friendships or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's because the majority of the time, the focus is on what you don't want. And it's why cycles and patterns never get broken. So it's a combination of that. And then also, like, for instance, an actionable thing that I do with my clients, I take them through a process where it's an alchemical forgiveness, but it's also like a higher level of awareness and perspective. So I'm just going to walk you through really quickly what that looks like, because it's really powerful, and it's a little bit takes people off guard, and then there's this softening. So it just, because it's like a bit of a bird's eye view. So if I were to ask you, like, what's a situation that's troubling you or who you're in conflict with, you would give me an answer. And how does that make you feel? Okay, so you give me an answer. And then I'd ask you to know, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not at all, 10 being super willing, like, how willing are you to forgive and accept, like, the person, but also accept the situation? You give me a number. Do a little bit of probing around, is there any kind of, are you getting attention about this? Are you unintentionally manipulating anyone in this situation? Find out if there's some secondary gain. But here's where it gets important. When then I would ask you, what is it? I want you to tell me everything you need to forgive that person for, right? And then you're just going to tell me all the things. And because of all of those things that you listed, and I would read them back to you, how did that person make you feel? So you might say sad, unloved, frustrated, whatever it is, right? So then the next piece of this is, so the unconscious mind is always, the goal is always resolution. And when there hasn't been resolution and healing, it recreates the same situation over and over, often with people that mean the most to us, because it doesn't know how, it's seeking resolution. So it keeps recreating the trauma and the drama over and over. And we see this most inside of human relationships. So then my question to you would be, fill in the blank person's name, Joe, right? Who, when Joe was a child or an adolescent, who in Joe's life made Joe feel all of those things that you just said to me? Frustrated, sad, unloved, whatever, unwanted. And what kind of trauma or circumstance did he experience that he did not have the resources to release?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this practice, and sorry to interrupt, but this practice, it just reminds me that most times as humans, we rarely sit down to face all of the things that we've experienced. We just kind of are in this movement of going through the motions on a day-to-day basis. And this is why it's so important to have people like you or, relationship experts, therapists that dig deeper and don't do the same types of things over and over. It's really about you being open to having the conversations, to digging a little bit deeper. Because again, naturally, as much as we may not want to admit it, we like to be just going on for the ride of life without really facing things. And it does take, and you tell me, what would you say? To me, it feels very like, and I've worked with clients as well, you have to be willing and you have to recognize that you're worthy enough to have the sit down time to think about how to heal, how to move forward, versus being so inclined to just do the same thing over and over again,
Yes. And the beautiful thing about the specific work that I do is that when most of my clients come to me, they have done all the things.
Sure.
Right?
All
They've
of the
done
other
some
things.
work.
Yeah.
They've done the traditional talk therapy. They've done, so they're not coming to me saying, I don't know, I'm fresh out of a crisis. I've done nothing. I don't know, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
They've done all the, so what's really different and unique about this is that the story isn't really relevant. So we're not going to go back into the traumatic events very much that caused the pain in the first place, because we don't need that to actually heal. So we get to tap into that other 90%, the unconscious mind, which is where the magic happens. Because if you think about your body, everything from the neck up is our conscious mind, right? It's our critical faculties. It's everything we know. It's what makes us successful and effective. It's our goal setter, and we use it all day, 10% of our mind. So everything from the neck down, the rest of our body, that other 90% is our unconscious mind.
Sure.
So if our conscious is our goal setter, our unconscious is really our goal getter. And most importantly, it's the literal library of everything you've ever experienced in your entire life. And all of that is held at a cellular level in the body. So people think of memory being in the brain, but memory is cellular. And when it's not released properly, right, then we see the physical manifestation of anxiety, depression, overwhelm, exhaustion, autoimmune disorders, illness, injury, disease, cycles and patterns that never get broken. So with quantum time release, we get to release all the built up negative charge of anger, sadness, fear, guilt, and shame in a completely peaceful, painless love.
Is this in person or virtual?
It's all virtual. So we get to do this all over the world.
That's amazing. Is that like you just have sessions, weekly sessions, or what? How does this is amazing.
Work works. So because the other thing about this work is it's about 8 to 10 times faster than any other modality in the world, because we're able to tap in and clear and tap into the unconscious mind and clear all the root cause stuff. And so the transformation happens rapidly and pretty gently. And so there's two ways to do that, right? So I have a 10-week Clear to Create Quantum Intensive, 10 weeks. It's not 10 years. It's not 10 months.
That's no time. Like, we spend 10 weeks doing worse things. I can tell you that.
I spend 10 weeks on TikTok. Like, come on, right? Like we waste 10 weeks on TikTok.
Seriously.
And then for the woman who wants to be like held and seen and held accountable and really like co-create like every area of life, like health, wealth, relationships, self-love, career, I have a 1-year container called the Clear to Create Mastery Experience, where we do the intensive first. So you get all the breakthroughs. We're going to get those incredible results in that really fast amount of time. But then we're going to take that together over the course of the remaining 10 months and then execute it and co-create it together so that we touch every area of your life.
That's amazing. Well, I love that. And I think that more people need that service. I also want to go backwards a little bit to just your story of being in marriage for 22 years. My one question is, when did you know that you felt like it was no longer right for you?
So I must have misspoke maybe around the timing. So Maddie's 21 now, but we were married 11 years. We've been divorced and she was 6. So when did I know it wasn't right? About 6 months before I got married.
Oh, shoot. So you just felt like you were doing all of the right things to get married, even though you felt. And what were you feeling? Because I've heard this story more than once. And I would like for people to not have to go through it if they don't have to. So what were you feeling?
I was, the ripe old age of 22 or 23, and I was certain I was going to be the old cat lady, and I was never going to
young, right?
Like to love me. There was signs, and there was panic for me, as there was just like something wasn't right, and I couldn't figure it out, and I tried to fix it, and just figured it would get better and it would resolve itself, and it never did. And then it just got worse in some respects. And then at some point, when you're so lonely inside of a marriage or a relationship, that sense of loneliness is so much more painful than to be alone on your own.
Sure. Yep.
So, but now I also want to say I don't regret it, because without that marriage, we wouldn't have Maddie, right? So
Absolutely.
That is,
and the lessons learned. I mean, at the end of the day, I also think that unfortunately, sometimes it feels like you have to go through the struggle to get to your purpose to a certain degree. And just be more relatable, just be able to connect to for example, your clients in this case. But yeah.
And now, I never thought this would happen either. I mean, so
Right.
1 year ago, I married the greatest love of my life,
Oh,
which I never
yay. I love that. Okay. Congrats. And I did see that. I love it.
And my ex-husband, Maddie's dad, is, married again. And
Awesome.
we all can, Maddie goes to San Diego State. So my husband and I, my ex-husband and his wife, we will all gather. We'll have dinner with her.
Yeah.
We went to a country concert. We went to the bar and did shots. She's like, okay, this is crazy. It was so fun. Now,
when you're on the other side.
It took a lot to get there.
Sure.
But again, for me, the forgiveness piece, and in any situation, you always have to forgive 3 people, right? You have to forgive the person that hurt you or harmed you. You have to forgive the people that didn't show up or help when they could. And you have to forgive yourself.
Listen, that one.
That's the hardest one.
That one.
Always.
I always tell people that one is key.
Yeah.
Because I think we feel a lot of shame for putting ourselves in situations, and we feel this regret. And why did I do this? I knew better, all of the things. And the truth is that you did the best that you were supposed to do at that time.
And the shame is so heavy.
So heavy. And I get it, been there, but it's like you are meant for better things. Yeah. But that's key. And I'm glad that you said that. I would also like to, because I'm always fascinated. And how long did it take you before you were willing to be open to a new relationship? Were you afraid to get married again, would you say?
I always wanted to be married again. I was afraid. My fear was more I'm never going to find, I'm broken. Clearly there's something wrong with, what is it about me? And maybe my expectations are too high, and all the stories we have, right? We have dad stuff. We have ex-husband stuff. We have all the stuff that comes along with that, and all those limiting beliefs and decisions that we make from the time that we're, between 0 and 7 that are running our decisions from an unconscious level. And I didn't want to be alone. But after my divorce, though, I was all about just being Maddie's mom. That. I just wanted her to feel safe and grounded, and having her to have to now go to 2 different places. I just didn't want any split focus. And then after a period of time, you're like, yeah, okay. And, it'd be nice to have somebody in my life. And I had met somebody. I was at a conference, and we didn't live in the same state, so it doesn't really count. I moved to California, and we'd been here a couple of years. And then I, again, had that sense of I'm just going to be alone forever. And so I went on the dating apps. I went on a date, and I was like, okay, great. This is it. And it was ridiculous. And it was one of those things where
I love that.
Again, I knew at the core of who I am that this is the least compatible person with me. But I tried to make myself think that
mold it into something.
I need to, okay, I'm going to adjust this thing of the things that are my core values and my non-negotiable.
Oh, and no, we don't do that. Yes. No, we don't adjust core values. We do not do that.
Right. So that was my foray. And then I'm oh, it was awful and brutal in the sense that it was just so wrong. And so then it was after that for me that I was okay, this is insane. And then I got really clear about who I was, what I wanted, who that person looked like. And around that same time, when I was doing all of that other work, I was okay. So I'd been coaching for a long time. I've been in the space for 20 years. But I was this is my life's work. So then I went and did all of my master training and all of my certifications in the higher level stuff in which I practice now. But I'm doing this workshop, right? And this is something that I do with my clients. So we create this aligned attraction blueprint, and it's a menu. So first we kind of do this soul connection codex, which is really a values elicitation of getting really clear about the things that are the most important to you. And without them, it cannot be, right? And then we reorder them, the top 10, because anything after 10 isn't really a core value. And then we do your non-negotiables list and your desires list. And this all came to be because after that ridiculous relationship, when I moved to California, I remember doing, I think it was like a Brene Brown day workshop.
Sounds about right.
A million years ago. And I made a list, right? And I remember it was like on this big drawing journal. I am not an artist, so I don't know why this was in my possession, but it was like this huge, big, fabulous, hardbound book with white paper, and I had different colored markers, and I was just writing all these things, and then I, didn't think about it again. And about 3 months after Pete and I got engaged, I found that list.
Oh, and it was everything matched.
It was like, I think there was 40 things on my list, and I think 37 of them would describe my husband.
Literally happened to me too. So that it works. It absolutely works. I think it's just more about, as you said, just having a clear understanding of what you want, what you don't want, what your non-negotiables are, knowing who you are, knowing what you have to offer. And
yes,
please recognize that to me, you cannot expect too much out of someone else if you're not willing to give the same.
right.
But that's amazing. I love that. I love the list.
Well, I love the list too. But the values piece is so incredible because I really teach people too how to make values-driven decisions in every area of their life. Because when you get to make values-driven decisions, it's a clean no or a clean yes.
Yes, absolutely.
And keeps you out of the devil, which is the maybe, which is where all the drama and the noise comes and the decision fatigue of never really knowing. And then you just spin around rather than powerfully owning it, right?
I'm the same. I'm like, confusion is the devil to me. Like if I'm confused, then something's not right. Because it's true. Once you're aligned with your values, you are very clear cut on where you're going. And I did want to ask, and I feel like maybe we can potentially end with this, but I feel like whenever you're in a positive experience and a positive relationship, so many things change for you. Your perspective ultimately changed to a certain degree. What do you think being in such a great relationship has taught you about yourself, about your partner maybe, and even others in the world?
So, I mean, all reflection and growth happens inside of relationships. We need that mirror.
Thank you.
Right?
Yes.
So one of the things which is such a powerful concept is perception is projection.
Yes.
And it can be the reason you have such an incredible relationship. It's also the reason the divorce rate is so high.
Yes.
Because what happens is we meet somebody and we're like, oh my gosh, you're amazing. I love you. And they're like, oh my gosh, you're amazing. I love you. And then they're like, wow, you have a lot of baggage. That looks really heavy. Can I carry that for you? And you're like, oh yes, here, let me give it to you. And for a minute, it feels really good. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, months or years go by and you look at this person and you're like, I don't know who you are. You're not who I fell in love with. Yep. I don't even know who you are, because they're just reflecting back to us all of our unresolved crap. Mm-hmm. And if you can take that baggage back, you can become healed together and have that soulmate connection. Mm-hmm. Most people become wound mates, codependency, and then we see breakup because you don't take your own shit back.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so getting to own who you are, take responsibility for it, clean it up, hold space for other people and love them, but also confidently hold boundaries and really communicate your needs, lets you be in a place to fully love and support other people.
It's been a real pleasure to just connect with you. And I feel like hear your story and understand your work, and you're doing fantastic work. Like, how do people get to know you and work with you? Absolutely.
So rianamalia.com, the website. Everything's there. Obviously the socials are all at Riana Malia as well. And at rianamalia.com/gifts, I have some incredible things that I put together, some resources that I'd love to just give your listeners.
Awesome.
Some opportunity to just dive in and get curious.
We love that. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. We appreciate you coming onto the podcast.
Thank you. Anytime.
I'll talk to you soon. If you love this episode, like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you for the next episode. Thank you.